Good morning everyone, it's Pierre speaking. It's the 2nd of May 2017. Time is about 8 o'clock GMT time when I made this video clip. We're running a little bit late here, so let's start. Euro US dollar. I'm going to look at the daily chart this week, and the reason for it is, guys, last week we only closed 53 pips higher than the opening. If we go to the 4-hour chart, we can see we're quite flat, and that is why I decided to flip the daily. Now it's a new month, new monthly pivot point, so if we flip the previous month from the low to the high, then we've got a zone starting at 762 coming down to 667. In the trading zone, we've got a 200 EMA here at 748, a 55 EMA at 735. Look to the left, previous support resistance, so that will be my areas in the Earth and Sky trading zone where I want to look for longs. However, if we add a 58.2 FIP this week, then that comes in at 807. There's also a monthly pivot point, psychological level, and there's a 200 daily EMA. So that can be our first roadblock for this week. So keep your eyes on that for support, for possible longs as well. Possible counter trades, 952, and if we go to the 4-hour chart, 966, it's a weekly pivot point, 1024 for possible counter trades again. So I say again, look at the weekly pivot points, weekly resistance 1, weekly resistance 2 for possible short setups, counter trades, and then for longs starting at the 58.2 FIP at 807, as that will be our first roadblock. Euro JPY 4-hour chart, let me just take that line out. This one is mixed on the daily, but last week we had a nice rally. We closed 181 pips higher than the opening. That is why I want to flip the 4-hour. If we do that, we flip previous week from the bottom to the current highs. We made a new high there, so follow it, guys. Every time we make a new high here without a pullback, follow it with your flip so that the Earth and Sky zone can move. Currently, we've got a zone 120.71 going down to 119.80. In the trading zone, we've got a weekly main pivot point at 120.78. We have a 4-hour 55 at 120.21. So that will be my two areas in the Earth and Sky trading zone to look for longs. However, if this 55 breaks at 120.21, take note. Here we have two 200 EMAs, a 55 EMA, and a weekly pivot point. So that is multiple reasons. Look to the left of the chart, previous support resistance. So anything from 119.60 coming down to 119.20 for support to go long again if this 55 doesn't hold. Currently we're hitting a weekly pivot point at 122.64. We have MACD divergence where price is trending up, MACD is trending down, stochastic overbought. So that is a warning sign that there's possible correction coming. If we go to a daily chart here, look at this, guys. Look to the left, previous support resistance. We're getting closer to that psychological level at 123, so that can be a huge resistance area for this one. If we look at the euro pound 4-hour chart, here everything tells us to short. Last week we closed 100 and now I'm talking nonsense, I need glasses. 44 pips lower than the opening. So if we flip previous week from the high to the low, then we've got a zone 8468 going up to 8500. Now price already in the Earth and Sky trading zone. Okay, I will prefer if we can get to 8507. That is a 200 EMA. We've got a weekly pivot point there, and I think there's a 55 as well. Let me just move that. Well, there's two 200 EMAs, the daily and the 4-hour EMA. We've got a 55 EMA slightly higher. So anything from 8500, let's just go back to the 1 hour so that the lines can adjust. Anything from 8500 to 8524 will be areas to short this one if we do get up there. Pound US dollar 4-hour chart. Remember, this one is negative correlated with the euro pound. So if the euro pound find resistance here, turn around, then this one can rally. Now last week we closed 108 pips higher than the opening. Everything is green, so we can flip the previous week from the bottom to the top. We've got a trading zone starting at 2868 coming down to 2819. This will be a key area. It's the 55 EMA at 2853, weekly pivot point slightly lower at 2815. So that will be my two areas where I would keep my eyes on for possible support before I will relook the longest pair. Counter short 3008. Once price gets up to that level, I will relook the shortest pair. If we look at the pound JPY 4-hour chart, yeah, everything shouts that we need to look for longs. 4 hours long, daily is long. We close 287 pips higher than the opening. If we make new highs here, follow it with the FIP so that your Earth and Sky trading zone can move. Current zone, if we FIP from the bottom to the top, then we've got a zone starting at 142.33 going down to 141.20. In the zone, we've got a 55 at 142.21 psychological level. So that will be my first area to look for support where I want to go long again. If the 55 breaks to the downside, keep your eyes on this level here, 140.82 and 140.11. We have a daily 200 EMA there, and then slightly lower the 4-hour 200 with a daily 55. And if we look to the left of the chart, previous support resistance there as well. So I say again, if the 55 breaks, take note of it, because we can go and visit this area here between the two 200 EMAs, where I will relook the longest pair. Currently we have MACD divergence where price is trending up, MACD is trending down, so there's a possible correction coming on this one. Aussie US dollar 4-hour chart, everything is red. Last week we closed 74 pips lower, so we need to look for a short zone. We flipped previous week from the high to the low. Then we've got a zone 7511 going up to 7547. Now look at this 4-hour candle. Price burned at this 200 EMA at 7554, 7543, and even this weekly pivot point up here will be key resistance areas for this one this week, guys. So keep your eyes on that level, 7543 up to 7562 for possible short setups. If you look at the Aussie JPY, let's just go to the 4-hour chart. The daily is mixed. Last week we closed 17 pips higher than the opening, but this morning we had a nice rally already since yesterday. Look at that, that was the close. So we was flat last week on the 4-hour, but this morning we had a nice rally already. So we can flip the 4-hour from the bottom to the top. Then we've got a zone 83.64 coming down to 83.18. In the zone we've got a weekly pivot point and a 55 EMA. But before we get to the zone, between the 38.2 FIP and the 50% FIP, we have two 200 EMAs, a weekly pivot point. Look to the left of the chart, previous support resistance. So possible support 83.85, 83.79, 83.68, 83.64 will be the areas to look for longs again. Possible counter trades. If we look at this one, 84.64 is a weekly second pivot point. MACD is high, stochastic is overbought. No MACD divergence on the 4-hour. Let's go to the 1-hour. Yes, look at that. So possible correction coming on this one and a counter trade. US dollar JPY 4-hour chart. Mixed on a daily, but on the 4-hour we close 125 pips higher than the opening. Everything is green on the 4-hour. So if we flip from the bottom of last week to the current highs, let's just follow it. Then we've got a zone starting at 110.88, it looks like, to coming down to 110.24. At the 50% FIP, we have a 55 EMA. We have two 200 EMAs. We've got a psychological level. We've got a weekly main pivot point. Look to the left, previous support resistance in the same area. So that is multiple reasons, starting from the psychological level of 111. Coming down to 110.81 for possible support where we want to go long. Now prices at the weekly pivot point at 112.15, so there's a possible correction coming. If we drop down to the 1-hour chart, look at the doji candle at this weekly pivot point, double top on MACD it looks like, stochastic overbought, so place a trend line and we need to wait for confirmation. Trend line break before we can get into this trade. Go to the 30-minute chart, you can see the ribbon indicator is still wide open, no confirmation to short this one yet. US dollar CAD 4-hour chart, everything tells us here to long. If we look at the 4-hour, the daily, everything green, Last week we closed 158 pips higher than the opening. So if we flip previous week from the bottom to the top, we've got a zone 3554 coming down to 3482. In the zone, nothing really happening there except a little bit of previous support resistance and a psychological level. However, at the 38.2 FIP, we have a 55 EMA, a weekly main pivot point, previous support resistance. So that will be my first roadblock, 3588, 3569 for support, where I would like to go long again. If the 55 breaks, be careful. We can go visit 3469 as these EMAs will move up. The 204 hour will move up, the daily 55 will move up. So keep your eyes then on that area for support to go long again. Currently, MACD divergence, price is trending up, MACD trending down, so we can go sideways for possible correction on this one. If we look at the US dollar daily chart, this is the index daily chart. Why are we looking at the daily chart? Last week we closed -2 pips. Everything tells us to look for shorts. We can't flip the 4 hour because we closed -2 pips. It was flat, flat, flat. So what we can do is flip the daily from the high to the low. Then we've got a zone starting at 102 going up to 169. In the zone at the 50% FIP, we have a psychological level. We have a 200 EMA and a 55 EMA plus previous support resistance. So that will be our area where we want to go shorts, starting from 99.95 going up to 100.09. Before that, also a roadblock in this area here, 99.59. Why? It's a monthly pivot point. There's a 200 EMA, 38.2 FIP previous support resistance. So that can be the first roadblock, 99.70. If that breaks to the upside, psychological level of 100. There's also a trend line coming down. While that trend line holds, buyers will be to look for shorts. That's it. Have an awesome one. If you've got any questions, please pop in at the forum. I will be there and I will be able to help you. Cheers.